You know that feeling when you know that something's just not meant for you, but you can't pinpoint exactly why? You just look at it and this primal impulse inside you just surfaces and it makes your anxiety spike. I'm not gonna lie, much to my good fortune, Emilia Perez is a movie that I hadn't known too much about until relatively recently. I consider myself a person that tries to give a chance to every film, no matter how weird or bizarre it may seem, because I like learning about other people's perspective on things. Most art is created or born out of personal experience, which is something you can never understand unless you've literally lived in that person's shoes. But a little while ago, there was a lot of buzz about this film, a lot of praise, and also a lot of hate for the film as well. Obviously, all films that take bold risks and are inherently different are gonna have polarizing reception. But in this case, Emilia Perez not only gained critical acclaim, but it also received 13 Oscar nominations, of which include Best Picture, Actress in Leading Role, Actress in Supporting Role, Directing, Writing. Oh my god, I can't even finish the list because of how absurd it is. If you can believe it, this film is a musical about the Mexican drug cartel. Zoe Saldana plays a lawyer who gets involved in helping this Mexican drug lord Manitos disappear as he wants to have a sex change operation and live his calm life in a peaceful hacienda in Switzerland. And you know, like I said before, I'm not annoyed at the premise. Personally, I love when a movie gets weird, and this film is extremely bizarre, but you gotta give it points for at least forcing you to smile anytime you read how bizarre that premise is. Memorability is the holy grail of all media and art. If a film can stand the test of time, then normally it's a success. However, being remembered for the complete opposite of what its intention was for this film is the most likely outcome for this project. Like that F on a report card back in school that no matter how well you did in other classes, that F is always going to stick out. That F will most likely follow any and all people that were involved in this project. This represents what can only be considered as Hollywood's desperate attempt at being woke or considerate of other cultures. It's genuinely funny how the Academy can look at this and through just sheer desperation claim this to be a soulful, comprehensive exploration about culture, sexuality, and music, when really it's the most shallow garbage I think I've ever experienced. This is a movie that's trying to make important, powerful statements about extremely complicated and complex social issues from corruption, sexual awareness, immigration justice, all while dressed as advocacy and comprehension of these intense things. It's like the movie's trying to break the medium between entertainment and real conversation and leave like a lasting message with the audience, or hit a nerve, I guess. But it portrays everything in the most unempathetic, generic way that doesn't even explore anything or even try to give insight to the viewer in a meaningful way. It's not like you're gonna find a single scene or sequence that all of a sudden gives you some form of wisdom. One of the things that upsets me most about this film is that all of these characters, they feel so surface level and have little to no layers to them, so it doesn't give any context for us to actually connect with the characters. Shockingly, this film is partially meant to be about Mexican culture, where you're supposed to feel engrossed in its culture, but it's the most stereotypical portrayal of Mexico as a whole. As a Mexican, there were so many times where this movie made my blood boil because of how ignorant it felt. It's just so unpleasant to watch. And it's truly tragic that out of a population of 130 million people, the director couldn't find any talented actors. It just goes to show how bad we are as performers. Or that Mexican culture is so uninteresting and bland that the team behind the making of this film didn't feel the need to have a basic understanding of Mexican culture. But it's okay, because Hollywood and its pretentious powerhouses felt like this is truly what the Mexican experience is like. By the way, maybe getting a proper speech coach would really help drive home the immersive experience. And the characters? Hardly any of them sounded like they had a Mexican accent. Zoe Saldana's performance is passable at best, but if Selena Gomez didn't bother to learn how to emulate an accent, then hire Salma Hayek or Lucero, or at that point, if you're that desperate, hire Becky G and she'll probably sound better than what Selena sounded like. I really don't think it's a stretch to say this is one of the most dishonest films of recent memory. All this, by the way, without having mentioned that the music is awful in this film. It's like they're talking funny and slightly faster than normal speech levels, and it's so cringy, none of the songs are moving, and definitely aren't replayable. What good is a song if it never makes you want to listen to it again? Songs are meant to be heard over and over again, not the other way around. Ironically, this movie's trying to be woke and break stereotypes, but it actually represents musicals in the way that people who hate musicals think they sound like. There's no passion, no energy, no flow, no actual meaning to the song, songs outside of the very thin surface level stuff. And it doesn't let up. It's like when Alex in Clockwork Orange is getting tortured. You know the scene. You feel hopeless because you just want the movie to stop with the terrible songs, but it's just relentless right up until the end. This movie made me miss Joker too. Yeah. Honestly, the funny thing is, if this movie had released straight to stream, which it is, and hadn't received all the buzz that it did, it probably would have been fine. We would have watched it and moved on because of how forgettable the actual context of the film is. It's now memorable because of all the attention around it. Most people wouldn't have made such a fuss about it because most audiences wouldn't have even acknowledged it, like most other straight to stream movies. By the way, this isn't to say there isn't a version of this film where it could have worked. A team that's actually willing to authentically study and understand the themes that it wants to explore could have made this film actually work. It could have been entertaining, informative, and resonant, all while respecting the different groups of people that are being referenced. I don't presume to know how to direct or write, and I'm aware of how often people direct and write based off of watered down versions of cultures, but the amount of hubris that it took to create this film is embarrassing. It's insulting. It's unbelievable that this is considered an acceptable illustration of representation. I didn't realize 99% of Mexico is heavily involved in the cartels. It literally felt like I was being slapped in the face when the movie made it very clear that as far as the film's concerned, there's hardly any people that live lives outside of the cartels. And I was dumbfounded when this film told me that this powerful drug lord who has committed the most inhumane crimes all of a sudden gets a halo ring over him. And when he becomes a woman like on a dime, he decides, I'm gonna give back to the community because I met a friend in Rita. What was the point of the entire first third of the film when he wanted to vanish and was willing to even forfeit his entire family? If you're gonna then decide to be the face of the people and be the next saint to go down in history, she was even martyred by the end, which is just unreal. And 2 or 3 decent looking shots is no consolation for this absolute train wreck. But that's it for me. I'd appreciate a thumbs up, subscribe, and sincerely yours, Anthony.